without further ado, I would like to welcome Peter onto the stage. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also one of the few people that said that I've never spoken at a union until while I was a student. It was the wrong union anyway, but I can see why I made a very wise decision back then. Thanks very much for having us. I'm COO of the Carbon War Room, and I think what we heard before was a link of design through to innovation, and hopefully what I can do in the next 15 to 20 minutes is just put the link of innovation through to a big problem. And when I say innovation, it's more specifically entrepreneurship at the core. In terms of solving big problems, and that was the title that I was given and enjoy taking on, I don't want to actually dwell on the problem at all. I think if people are here and want to know more about, is climate change happening? Are we depleting resources? The word sustainability and all those things. That's not for my talk. My talk, I think, sort of starts from the point of view that you assume there's a problem and we want to solve it, and say, so how do we go on from there? I think our three driving beliefs that I'm going to chat about today. One is that the business must take the lead. This is a too complex a problem for us to sort of absolve this and resolve it and let sort of governments alone take the solutions. It is in fact the economic opportunity of our generation, and you have to dive in and know each and every sector, and that sectors matter when we're solving a problem as big as climate change. So quick, first on who we are. Before I start, how many people have heard of the Carbon War Room before? Quick show of hands. So not too many, that's okay. We've been going for just over a year, and it's, as it says there, an entrepreneurial, independent, non-profit. We focus on gigaton scale, market-based solutions to climate change. What is actually going to move the needle in terms of actually solving the problem? And it's an entrepreneurial solutions to get things done. We were founded by Richard Branson. He's since been joined by 10 other global entrepreneurs from around the world. Examples, I think somebody might be in this room, Vladis Lassis from Lithuania. We've got Strive, a telecoms entrepreneur from Africa, creator of the Dutch postcode lottery from Holland, venture investor from California. They've all got together and said, effectively, and this was convened actually in Richard's island once, where he said, well, Virgin Unite is the social foundation that creates effectively solutions in new business models to get things done, and business as a force for good. And they created one called the Elders, which was Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, Kofi Annan, and others, called the Elders, which is basically convening moral authority rather than political authority around solving a problem. The other one was called the Southern Africa Disease Control Hub, or AIDS War Room, which is trying to bring together all the best people in the world to solve that problem. And really what happened on the island was basically saying, well, how can we actually solve climate change? How can we get all the best people in the world around the problem to focus on that? So we have 10 entrepreneurs at the founder level. We have Jose Maria Figueres, the gentleman in the middle. He's the former president of Costa Rica, the first CEO of the World Economic Forum. He's our chairman. Excuse me. And we've joined by an executive team, really from the private sector. So that's who the Carbon War Room is. Excuse me. So in terms of the role, how do we get things done? Well, basically, to solve a big problem like climate change, you need a working marketplace. And what we need is policy, capital, and technology all coming together to solve that problem. For us, we think that policy is a necessary but insufficient condition to get things done. You do need the policy, but it's not enough. And technology, that's arguably not the bottleneck. Many of these places where climate change can be solved, the technologies are there, but they're not getting the capital. So our focus is really on driving capital into the working marketplace, curing market failures effectively. Normally, these market failures come in the form of either poor information, high transaction costs, or both. How do you get capital moving into the marketplace to get things done? How many people here are familiar with the MAC curve or McKinsey cost curve? Any hands? A couple more hands in there, about the same as who've heard of us. So there's a little climate change community here. This is worth explaining. It's basically this is the climate change solution on one graph. If you have on the y-axis there, basically the cost of taking a ton of CO2 out of the atmosphere. If it's above the x-axis, then it's a positive cost. That little bar actually costs something to take that ton of CO2 out. Below that is obviously a negative cost. And then on the width of the strip, in a histogram, the width of the strip is how many tons of CO2 do you get out of the atmosphere by getting that done. So effectively, we've taken all the labels out here, but you've got things like energy efficiency, electric vehicles, carbon capture and sequestration, sort of basically cleaning up the flue gas on coal power stations, paying poorer countries not to chop down trees. All these initiatives get you some of the way along the x-axis and either cost a lot per ton of CO2 or might even make some money. Two key, so this is sort of, as I say, climate change on a page. I think there's a number of key pieces here that we sort of, as a society, need to sort of take cognizance of. One is, there's not one silver bullet. There are lots of little strips here as a world that we have to do to solve climate change. And by the way, the length of the x-axis is effectively to the temperature stabilization, 17 gigatons of CO2 that we need to get out of the atmosphere. So if you imagine, you need all these strips done, and no one strip is that large to get you across the x-axis. The other pieces, which is actually borne by a Stern report and other places, actually the areas of the two graphs are fairly similar. What that means is good news. It means that, sort of effectively, net, this doesn't actually have to cost the world any money at all to solve this thing. But it does need a concerted effort to address everything. And then last piece in terms of, talking about policy being a necessary but insufficient condition to get things done, effectively a carbon price, a carbon tax, a global deal will effectively raise the x-axis and put more things into that left side of the cost curve. But really, sort of, that's part of the problem, I think. We've got to flip this and call the y-axis profit and say, let's chase those profitable opportunities to actually address climate change. And that's really the key piece here is trying to frame the problem so that instead of talking about it as a cost, we're talking about it as an economic opportunity to solve the problem. And Carbon War Room, what we do, and sort of many other NGOs and non-profits and governments focus on that expensive side. What we focus is on what are the things that are profitable right now that can solve the problem. So it was talked about in the intro. There's 3 teams in the Carbon War Room about how do we attack some of these problems. And I'm going to take you through a quick sort of working example. There's research and intelligence, basically doing the reports, but more sort of secondary research, seeing through a lens of saying, well, where are these gigaton scale opportunities? What is profitable right now? Network engagement, I suppose, is the words given to the war room, as in get the best people in the world around the table and the experts that really know their stuff in terms of what is the problem, how do we get through this, and then active operations, actually getting out there and trying to get rid of those market failures and get capital moving. How we cut up this big problem into a big problem, but it's also big solutions. We've cut up carbon dioxide solution problem into 7 major theatres: electricity, transport, built environment, industry, land use, emerging economies, and carbon management. And then within these, there's 25 sectors. And those 25 sectors are effectively potentially gigaton solutions in their own right. And the dots are effectively places where we are currently active, and I'm going to just zero in on shipping right now. In terms of the filter we then apply, is saying, just quickly click it through, if it's doing. It's a very complicated filter. There it is. Is it gigaton scale? Is it big enough? Are there profitable solutions on current policy and current technology? Can we identify the market barriers and potentially a unique approach that actually helps the situation? And can we then have catalytic impact at global scale, verifiable success? So a good example is shipping. Shipping as an industry, it's 100,000, there are 100,000 vessels on the global international shipping fleet right now. If they were a country, those only 100,000 ships would be the 6th largest country in the world. They're well over a billion tons of CO2, so it is the most efficient way of moving over 90% of the world's goods. but it's just there's a lot of it. So as I say, the 6th largest country in the world, if it was a country, in between Germany and Japan, almost double the size of the UK. And also SOx, NOx, and PM, particulate matter soot, are also a huge problem by virtue just of the size of the industry and also what is being burned. One large ocean-going vessel pollutes the same in SOx terms as 50 million cars. So only 15 of the largest ocean-going vessels in the world pollute the same in SOx as the entire world stock of cars right now. So it's a big problem, but it's also a big solution. DNV and other organizations like it have effectively done that McKinsey cost curve you saw, but just in the shipping industry. There are dozens of technologies, which I'll go into in a second, that actually can make money right now and save fuel. And really, what we do is, and you know, sort of others like it, are saying, turn this into an economic opportunity. It's actually over 30% efficiency, less than 3-year paybacks on what is a 25-year-old asset, a 25-year asset, a vessel. It's over $70 billion a year that is currently being left on the table as fuel. So trying to turn climate change, which seems so intractable and seems like this problem, into an economic opportunity sector by sector is key. So as I say, an array of fuel-saving technologies in shipping, anything from the latest hull coatings. They are 5 times more expensive than the average paint, but they pay back within 10 months. There's a clever little one on the left there, which is an intake of air at the top of the bow, puts air bubbles down underneath the ship, and effectively this massive ship will float on air bubbles and save fuel by doing that. Satellites, sky sails, propeller winglets. You might have seen in the airplanes now that if you look out the window and you see the wing, there's a little wingtip is now turned up. That saves 4% fuel for them. That's not a place to get the British flag on it just for some advertising. That is actually a 4% fuel saving. And the thing is that airlines, because every single saving floats to their bottom line, they're doing everything they can to optimize the efficiency. Shipping's getting there, but it's not nearly fast enough. But suffice to say, there's 60, 70 technologies that we've analysed. The ship of tomorrow doesn't have to look much like the ship of today. It can look very different. So the key problem then is, what is the problem here? Because what it looks like is that there's dozens of technologies out there. They all pay back in very short time frames. They all save fuel. You know, sort of, why is shipping not solving climate change on its own? And what we found was there's really, and this was going from the research side into the network engagement side, by getting the actual experts in the room, there's 2 key market failures in shipping. One is information. It's very hard in the shipping industry for the key players in the industry to tell a good ship from a bad ship, a clean ship from a dirty ship. When they factor that into the day-to-day economic decision making, that's hard to tell. The other one is actually a split incentive issue. Much like if you're retrofitting a building, the union might be a classic example of this, where actually retrofitting would save time, would save a lot of money in fuel bills, but if I'm the landlord, why would I do it if the tenant's going to get the lower electricity bill? And if I'm the tenant, why would I do it if it's not my building? So something that would have benefited society in general doesn't happen because of that landlord-tenant issue, that split incentives. It's the same in shipping as it turns out. 70% of the fuel in the shipping industry is paid for by the cargo owner, not by the ship owner. So again, why would I fit all the bells and whistles onto my ship? It just makes my ship more expensive and somebody else saves the fuel. So it doesn't happen. So armed with these bits of information, you say, well, actually there could be a difference here. And so we move into the operation. Try and solve for the information market failure, then try and improve the demand pool, and then try and improve the capital flow so that investment can go into entrepreneurs and into those technologies. So what we did there is sort of looked at John Lewis, share the fascination with kitchen appliances, and said, sort of the fridge. You buy a fridge, it's A to G in John Lewis. Sort of now you can't find a B grade fridge. They're all A's. Why isn't there an A to G rating for the side of every ship? And then different economic actors can then make decisions based on that. As you can see here, we managed to get the press there from saying that ship owners, by virtue of a letter saying, dear the International Maritime Organization, we the industry want an index, is that actually the owners want the index to happen. If you think about it, the innovators within the industry are losing out. If they've got better ships and run things better, that they're actually suffering and not winning contracts compared to the dirtier ships. So getting an index on every ship. It's not physically a sticker. This went live. We launched this in Cancun during the climate change conference. Shippingefficiency.org beta. Basically, what you do is you go in, you press a button, you say what vessel you're interested in, and then out pops the rating. This is the Marit Maersk, it's an A. And then from there, the idea is that that's how well the ship was designed, encourages the efficiency argument to enter into the economic part of hiring that vessel. So what? The key piece here is then sort of saying, well, let's get into the information, solve that market failure, and then get the sharp elbows out and work out who can actually benefit from all this. Imagine the ports. So we're now moving in and chatting to the ports. How many ports does it take to say, we, the undersigned ports, will give carrots to A-grade ships? If they come in and they're clean, then they get 10% off dockage reduction, they get free shore power, they get green arrival time, they can come in whenever they can reserve their slot, etc., etc. How many of them did before it starts to get economically advantageous to be a cleaner ship? Shippers, I mean, if there's any in the audience, and I think gentleman from Procter & Gamble's here earlier, part of that $70 billion is theirs. They are actually sort of paying for that, and the cost is being passed through. So how many shippers can we get interested in actually pulling that information through? Ship owners, Maersk and others, if they can say, pick me because mine's better than the rest, that actually helps the supply side, the innovative side of the supply side. At the end of the day, you've got hopefully a Greek shipping broker who's supposed to not give 2 cents about the environment. That's the archetypal shifting tin from Athens. But if they buy an F-grade ship, spend $3 million on it and sell it as a B for profit, then he's helped the environment anyway. And that's the key piece when you know the market is actually working. And then finally, the capital conversation gets much more interesting when somebody can have a very rational conversation saying, I need $3 million times 10 ships to retrofit my fleet. They're going to get to B grades and I'm going to win the contract. So that's the idea of sort of trying to fix the market. It is starting to happen. We've had a few press releases or seen some independent press releases where people have said, we've launched a ship, it's a new one and it's an A grade. So it's nice to see that people are sort of starting to use it. We've got a lot to learn from the shipping industry and how we can also be more helpful there and improve the data. But we're also trying to improve the capital flows, and I think that's the link that I saw the presentation just before, from design through to innovation, and innovation through to solving big problems like climate change, is actually getting the capital flowing to the entrepreneurs and the retrofits. So engaging with the demand side. How many demand side players, the shippers, those people that own the cargo and are signed for it around the world, can we get to pull through and ask for this information? Looking at venture capitalists and uniting them with the clever ideas that you saw on the previous slide. And then improving the project financing for those innovative ship owners. So in terms of taking action, I thought I'd leave you with a couple of thoughts that we're doing, and then maybe a couple of thoughts for everyone here. In terms of what we're doing, we create these projects. So we've got 3-year objectives. We're trying to assist the innovators, accelerate change in shipping, get capital moving into the shipping industry. We think there's a gigaton scale solution in there. We've also got a lot more elephants in the room. You saw the circle diagram there. We are looking at aviation and renewable fuels, accelerating the take-up of biofuels. And aviation, compared to some other industries, they probably don't have too many medium-term fuel switching options. So they have to look at renewable fuels in a more serious way. Energy efficiency financing in buildings, especially. We're working with 27 cities to try and unlock the financing opportunity of those retrofits. That market failure I talked about is a huge one on a global scale. It's a $3 trillion retrofit market in the US alone. And island nations. Island nations typically are importing fuel at 40% premium of diesel compared to the average. And actually then using it to generate electricity. Meanwhile, they're sitting on renewable sources. Offshore wind, solar, etc. Can we flip those islands, because the economic case is compelling early, can we flip those islands to fossil fuel-free status sooner? And then that creates not only a carbon saving, but also an inspiration to the tier 1, tier 2 companies that can then duplicate that on the larger cities and the larger countries. So that's what we're doing, and welcome to join. I think, in terms of, as it says there, it's an entrepreneurial platform really to get things done. We've got entrepreneurs and their capital sources effectively as our target market, how do actually moving capital through to actually make the market solve climate change. And potential taking action on your part. Please do get involved. It's a LinkedIn platform. It's conferences. We're actually doing Creating Climate Wealth is the name of our conference. It does what it says on the tin. The idea is wealth should be made out of solving this problem. So do please, get involved and help us. Leadership. Take leadership. It's about entrepreneurs are needed to solve climate change. The shipping entrepreneurs. Most of the pictures I showed you on that design of what can actually improve the shipping are pre-revenue, small, not even venture-backed yet companies with some fantastic ideas. But if we cure the market, then the market will start to pull those things through. Energy efficiency in buildings is another great one. Solar and biofuels. There might well be some people in the room here working on such things. So taking leadership. Collaboration. We saw the name come up before. But it's going to have to be some unlikely partnerships. So, for instance, we're trying to get ports and ship owners, sort of aligned on the A-grade ships. Cities with a slight distrust, and probably justifiably so, of the private finance community and the private equity community. And we're trying to get private equity community interested in backing some of the building retrofits. So, unlikely partnerships are going to be needed. And the key piece there is also some believers. I think we need some believers. Believers that the economic and environmental transformation can happen at the same time. This is not a debate where we say it's going to cost everything, and there's sort of looking at the picture there, for instance, is that sort of a nightmare from an environmental perspective, or is that a retrofit opportunity and a huge business case? And really, that's what we're looking for: our believers and entrepreneurs who will take it to the next stage. So solving these big problems can be done. Business has to step up and take responsibility. This is not enough for governments to solve alone. It's far too complex, and we've seen it from Copenhagen through to Cancun, and we'll see it in Durban. They can make progress, but business has to step up as well. This is the economic opportunity of our generation. It is probably the test of our times, and we do believe it can be done. And sectors matter. Getting into those market failures, understanding the co-benefits. Again, sort of small links that are potentially unexpected with the presentations I think you've seen today. Sort of taking climate change as one of these problems to be solved. There's some amazing opportunities from a business perspective, getting in there, understanding the problem, and then what businesses can be created to solve them. And I'll just close with words from our chairman. There is no planet B. So we better get on with it and do it, and we'd love to help and be helped. So thanks very much for your time.